If you were alive in 1977 or born sometime afterward, and you watched the television series or film Jesus of Nazareth, then you probably remember the unforgettable performance of Robert Thomas Powell. That role became the defining moment of his career and ultimately changed his life forever. So, join us as we explore how Robert Powell lives today, what he has been doing over the years, and the lasting impact of portraying Jesus. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you for your support. Our community continues to grow every day, and you are the stars who make it possible. Born Robert Thomas Powell on June 4th, 1944, in Salford, England, he is the son of Kathleen Davis and John Wilson Powell. The British actor became, for millions of people across the Western world, the modern visual image of Jesus of Nazareth after starring in the acclaimed 1977 production directed by the legendary Italian filmmaker Franco Zeffirelli. Even today, the film is still broadcast in many countries during Christmas and Holy Week. Powell's striking, crystal-clear eyes, which seemed to blink only rarely on screen, became one of the most memorable features of the miniseries. Throughout Latin America, those captivating eyes became a familiar sight every Christmas and Easter as Jesus of Nazareth aired once again. Interestingly, many viewers believed Powell's eyes were bright blue. In reality, they were green. They weren't blue, they were green. The lighting simply made them appear blue whenever the light reflected off them. Powell explained in an interview with a newspaper nearly 50 years after the film's original release. Almost half a century later, Powell's face is still widely regarded as the modern Western image of Jesus Christ. The British actor, now in his 80s, went from being surrounded by fans asking for photographs, autographs, and even requests for miracles, to living a much quieter life. Today, he enjoys literature and has largely stepped away from the spotlight. I believe the film had such a profound impact on culture because we managed to reach every audience without being overly specific in our portrayal of Jesus, Powell said in an interview with the History Channel. But how did Robert Powell land one of the most iconic roles in 20th century television? And how did that role shape the rest of his career? Before 1977, Powell was relatively unknown in the film industry. Although he had already spent more than a decade appearing in BBC television productions, he had yet to achieve international recognition. That year, however, he auditioned for an ambitious new project about the life of Jesus, directed by Franco Zeffirelli. Ironically, Powell did not originally audition to play Jesus. Instead, he tried out for the role of Judas, reportedly after receiving a recommendation from one of the producer's wives. By that time, Zeffirelli had already earned international acclaim as an opera director and filmmaker. A few years earlier, he had successfully adapted William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet with a visually stunning and faithful interpretation. Now he hoped to bring the same artistic vision to the life of the Messiah in Jesus of Nazareth. For the role of Jesus, Zeffirelli initially dreamed of casting a major Hollywood star such as Dustin Hoffman or Al Pacino, who were among the most respected actors of the era. Eventually, however, the producers realized that although Hoffman and Pacino possessed extraordinary talent, neither resembled the traditional image of Christ familiar to Western audiences. Meanwhile, Powell, who had originally expected to portray Judas, possessed a calm, commanding presence and striking eyes that seemed perfectly suited for the role of Jesus. The only problem was that after Robert Powell was chosen to play Jesus, the filmmakers had to address the fact that he was living with his partner without being married. According to journalist Quentin Falk in his book Strange But True Moments in Television History, once the casting became public, newspaper headlines began appearing with titles such as Jesus Lives in Sin. To avoid further controversy, Powell and his longtime partner married shortly afterward. Known for his obsessive attention to detail, Franco Zeffirelli wanted Jesus to have an almost supernatural presence on screen. To achieve that effect, he instructed Powell to avoid blinking during nearly every scene. The actor only blinked naturally during the passion sequences, making those moments feel even more human and emotionally powerful. Although Jesus of Nazareth was originally conceived as a feature film, its remarkable running time of approximately 6.5 hours ultimately led it to become a television miniseries. Decades later, it remains one of the most beloved productions shown during Holy Week and Christmas in many predominantly Christian countries. At the beginning of filming, I was trying to avoid portraying Jesus in a conventional way, Powell recalled in an interview with the History Channel. Franco Zeffirelli and I originally thought we could combine Christ's divine nature with his humanity and present a more approachable Jesus. But shortly after filming began, he continued, we realized that wasn't really possible. Following the series' release, Powell's face began appearing in homes, churches, and prayer centers throughout the world. For countless believers, his portrayal became inseparable from their mental image of Jesus. Powell once shared a memorable experience while filming an Italian television production in Venezuela during Holy Week. We visited a church, he recalled, and a man approached me with a smile. He said, "It's remarkable. You've come into this church and the image of Jesus behind the altar that we venerate looks just like you." Over the years, rumors circulated claiming that Powell had undergone psychiatric treatment after the series because he supposedly began believing he was the Savior himself. However, Powell has never confirmed those stories, and there is no reliable evidence to support them. What is true is that after Jesus of Nazareth, Powell deliberately sought roles that would separate him from the image of Christ. He no longer wore his hair long or kept the beard that had become so closely associated with the character. He went on to play notable roles, including Richard Hannay in The 39 Steps, 1978, and the lead role in Harlequin, 1980, a performance that earned him the Best Actor award at the Venice Film Festival. Beyond acting, Powell also built a successful career as a narrator. He recorded audiobooks and appeared on numerous radio programs. For the BBC, he narrated the English-language edition of Love in the Time of Cholera by Colombian Nobel Prize-winning author Gabriel Garcia Marquez. After spending many years working in film, television, and theater, Powell gradually stepped away from public life to devote more time to literature and creative writing. He later reappeared in a documentary produced by the Smithsonian Institution, exploring the life of Jesus in Israel and the Palestinian territories. I accepted this project because this time I wasn't responsible for portraying Jesus, Powell explained. I came simply as Robert Powell, and I was free to ask every question I wanted. Even so, he admitted that the experience of being recognized had never completely disappeared. As much as I try to downplay it, I'm still amazed that people stop me on the streets in different parts of the world, even with short hair, glasses, and no beard. It's truly extraordinary. For many viewers, Robert Powell remains the greatest actor ever to portray Jesus on screen. His performance has been described as majestic, pure, deeply human, poetic, sensitive, and profoundly moving. Every line of dialogue was carefully drawn from the Gospels, giving even greater authenticity to his portrayal of Jesus of Nazareth. Many viewers also noticed that he rarely blinked whenever the camera focused directly on his face, creating an almost mystical presence that became one of the defining visual elements of the series. The production also featured an extraordinary ensemble cast, including Fernando Rey, Anthony Quinn, James Earl Jones, and many other acclaimed actors whose performances brought remarkable realism and emotional depth to the story. The atmosphere throughout the miniseries is filled with reverence and spirituality, which is one of the reasons it continues to resonate with audiences around the world. For millions of people across Latin America and many other countries, when they picture Jesus of Nazareth, the face they imagine is still that of Robert Powell. We hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you for your continued support.